Hi, I'm Luvvie of AwesomelyLuvvie.com, and I'm a writer, a digital strategist, and a lover of technology. AT&T's 28 Days empowers people to make their own history by offering inspirational tools, tips, and stories at att.com/28days. 28 Days celebrates how African Americans have impacted our culture and highlights those we believe will have an impact in the future. On this episode of AT&T 28 Days, I'll be joined by Paul Brunson. We'll be talking about what inspires him, our favorite tech apps, and the importance of time management versus value management. So let's get into it. So joining me now is Paul Brunson, who is like entrepreneur extraordinaire. He is the modern day Hitch. He is basically this epic dude who has multiple passions, and you can't just call him one title, which is why I have to make that really long. So, hey, Paul.
Love it. That was the best introduction I've ever had in my life. Thank you.
I accept that. Yes. I'm glad to have you here.
I like that. Thank you. It is a pleasure to be here with you.
So did that cover everything you do?
You know what? That covered everything. You know what I was thinking to add, if I could add anything, and only because I'm literally at home right now and I see my son walking around, is daddy.
Oh, yes. The most important one.
Yeah, absolutely.
So family man.
Family man. I'll take it.
Yes. You know what? You have my permission to add that to your bio.
All right. I'll take the whole thing and then I'll just add, boom, family man.
Yes.
Right on the back.
Yes, indeed. So it is Black History Month, and I think it's really important for us to, talk about the people who are making history right now, and I think you're one of them. So I got to ask, what and who inspires you? How did you become the Paul Brunson?
Yeah, I mean, it's even just wild to have this conversation and for me to be included, in this mix of people who are being celebrated this month. It's just really, really wild. I think my mother and father are most surprised about this. But gosh, in terms of inspiration, I source inspiration everywhere. I just mentioned my son walking around. He's walking around trying to rip his diaper off. He's 2 years old. And, even, my son saying, we got this family mantra. We call it the Brunson mantra of never give up, right? So, and I have 2 boys, a 5-year-old and a 2-year-old. And so my 5-year-old will say, never give up. And the 2-year-old will say, like, never, yep. That's I'm trying to say it. But just that. Like that's inspiring, all the way through to, Black Lives Matter and what I've seen done in such a short period of time, in just about 2 years. Incredibly inspiring. Individuals inspire me. I mean, Luvvie, like this is, not me just trying to gas you up, but I mean, you inspire me,
Wow.
Absolutely. I mean, to see what you've been doing for how long and how consistent you've been doing it in terms of leveraging social media, not just for, general conversation, but for a very particular purpose and moving the needle, So I source inspiration everywhere, and anything that I can latch on to that'll give me that feeling of creativity. I just latch on to it. And so it could be from a baby ripping a diaper off, right, to the Luvvie IG.
I mean, that's a huge honor because from one multi-passionate, AKA busybody, to another, I know that our careers often take on a different shape than what we thought they would initially. So, when did you know that your career would take on this current path?
I tell you what, I still don't know when I grow up. I still don't know. I'm soon to be an old man, right? And I don't know. I will say that I think my career has had different chapters. And the most recent chapter started about 6, now almost 7 years ago, when I was in finance. So I was managing money for a very wealthy Turkish family. It was like a dream job, right? They're billionaires. I was managing their U.S. investments. And I'm Jamaican, right? As you know, I'm Jamaican. So, Jamaican, we have to have at least 7 jobs. So
I'm Nigerian. We have to have 9. So, yes.
That's true. Nigeria is always one-upping somebody, right? Always.
We can't help it.
And So I not only did I have this day job of this great day job working for this billionaire family, but I had a nonprofit organization kind of quote unquote at night. And what we did is we provided tutoring services to underserved youth, mainly Black and Latino kids. And it was through that work that inspired me to get into this new phase of my life, this kind of matchmaking phase. And it was really because at this one summer camp, we had 100 kids in the summer camp, and not one of the 100 kids had two parents in their household.
Wow.
Not one. And we saw how it impacted them socially, it impacted them academically. And so it became almost a mission of mine, a new passion to really try to strengthen the nuclear family. And that created the next chapter of my life. And so, I don't know how long this chapter is going to run. I don't know if I get another one. But what I do know is that it's important to identify these passions in our life and chase them down relentlessly. And that's exactly what I'm doing right now.
Wow. That's actually my first time hearing how you became a matchmaker and what made you start that whole thing. That's intriguing. Wow.
Oh, yeah. That's exactly how it started.
Wow. A lot of people always say that when they start their business, there's really no safety net. So what really pushed you to be like, you know what, I can't quit this job?
I have thought about that, and I think there are a couple of keys. One is that my father was an entrepreneur. And even though we kind of joked about like the Jamaican and the Nigerian, right? But being, son of an immigrant, right? I think that in itself, there's a survival, there's a survival mechanism that comes with that, right? So it's almost like within the DNA
Mm-hmm.
that's something that can be done. But watching, my grandfather, watching my father in particular, I think that was a great lesson for me because I was able to see one who did extremely well becoming an entrepreneur, and another one did not do extremely well becoming an entrepreneur. As I was able to, kind of look at the why. So that was one big thing. The second is that what I've noticed in particular about life is that the people. So I'm a big biography and autobiography reader,
Mm-hmm.
right? I love just to read specifically on people and their journeys. And what I've realized is that those who win biggest in life are those who double down on themselves, right? They invest in themselves, but not just they invest in themselves, but they let it all ride on themselves.
Wow. And a lot of times we cheer other people on, and when it's time for us to cheer ourselves on, we're not able to. So there's a courage that comes with being able to double down on yourself that I think some people aren't able to reach in a certain moment. So that's actually really interesting. What is your favorite autobiography?
Oh man, definitely. Why Should White People Have All the Fun by Reginald Lewis. That book changed my life. As a matter of fact, I will say this, Luvvie. I wasn't proud of this back in the day, but I read that book when I was 18 years old. Why Should White People Have All the Fun by Reginald Lewis. And when I read that book, it was the first book that I had ever read in my entire life, cover to cover. So when I was in high school, I never read a book cover to cover. When I was in elementary school or, green eggs and ham doesn't count, right? But legitimate books I had never read. And that was the first time I'd ever truly read. And I read that book in 3 days and it changed my life.
Okay, so I need to put that on my reading list ASAP.
Oh, ASAP. That's it right there. And by the way, that book's not just for Black people, right? It's not like it's for anybody who wants to get some great inspiration around how to achieve great things in life. Reginald Lewis was definitely that guy.
Oh, okay, done. It is on my wish list. I'm gonna order that. So I'm a techie. I like to figure out ways to make my life easier using technology. And we're in this social media obsessed world. So how do you use tech to mobilize your world?
Tech is critical. Tech is how you and I met.
Yep.
Tech is how actually tech is how I build all of my relationships now. With our matchmaking agency that I have, 90% of that happens through, some type of technology. So it's technology is really important. In terms of organizing, there's a variety of applications in particular that I use to help me, but I'll say some of my favorites are around, so Sunrise is is literally a calendar application, but it's the best calendar application that I've ever, used in my life.
Wait, why?
Um, you know, the key reason is because it syncs seamlessly with all of my social networks.
Mm.
And I've never seen an application, do that. So Sunrise is now a major player for me. But it's interesting in terms of, like, I just literally pulled up my phone when you asked me that question. I'm looking at, well, what am I really using it? All of the in-demand services. I don't know if this is a good or a bad thing, but Uber,
Mm-hmm.
Instacart, you know, all of these, that's really, and I think the reason why that helps to organize my life, though, is because those truly for me create efficiency, and that
Right.
efficiency allows me to produce more.
Right. Working smarter, not harder.
Right.
Okay. So, like, how do you find the time and the balance? Well, how do you find the balance and the self control, actually, to unplug when you need to?
Yeah. I don't know. I've been debating this personally, for a long time. Actually, my wife and I have been debating this too. Is this whole notion of, can you truly balance and get balance in life, or is life just simply about prioritization?
Mm.
And there's a difference between balance and prioritizing. And so that's where we've kind of landed, is it's about prioritizing. And the key around prioritizing, I believe, is to really get in tune with what your values are, because your values are that's your rule book to life. That's everybody's rule book to life. And everyone
Mm-hmm.
has a different set of values. And if you're not feeding those values, you're just not happy. Or maybe for other people, they would say they feel unbalanced, right? Um, and so it's really key to know your values. And then once you know your values, you just simply feed those, right? And you feed them in order of priority. So for me, for example, creativity is a huge, is a big value of mine.
Okay.
So like literally, and I'm not like a great painter or whatever, but I'll like build stuff. I'll create stuff all the time. Like with my son, like we'll build Lego sets, together, or a volcano, or I'll think of an idea for a product, for one of the companies that I have, and I'll design that. I'm creating. Creativity is huge, and so I think as long as we know what our values are and we're feeding those values, then we'll never feel unbalanced, so to speak. And maybe never is a strong word. I'll just say that we'll rarely feel unbalanced. We'll feel whole.
Yeah, but some people still struggle with that. So the fact that people go to bed with their smartphones in their hands, do you do that?
No, you know what? I don't. I turn it off. So, so that's about habit, right?
Ah,
Um, I used to do that. Like I would go to sleep, with the smartphone. But what I do is I set it in airplane mode before I go to sleep, and before I
mm,
actually get into the bed. But see, it goes back to I still think it goes back to values, and the reason why is because so I turn off my phone because my wife and we still sleep with our kids, right? So our kids,
gotcha.
right, 5 and 2, they're still in the bed with us, and so that time in the bed is important to us. That's where we're reading, or maybe that's just where we're simply having a conversation.
Right.
We talk about what happened during the day with the kids, that kind of thing. And so why do we do that? We do that because family is a huge value of ours,
Mm.
right? It's a huge value. And so, when you look at my values, like family's up there, so it makes it easy for me to flip my phone off because
Gotcha.
that's a high priority for me, a high value.
I love that. That's a great way to look at it. That is a fantastic way to look at it, actually, because I think some people who value career above all else, for them, it's like, oh, yeah, I have to go to sleep with my smartphone so I can, answer that last email, even though it's probably not urgent.
And that's cool. Like, if that's your thing, right? If that's what you value, that's what you value, right? It shouldn't be not.
That's actually a very interesting way to look at it. You got me over here stroking my chin. I'm like, see, this is why Paul is who Paul Brunson is, and why Oprah knows who he is. And like, Oprah be like, "What up, Paul?" Like, that was not by accident, because you're brilliant.
That was a blessing. That was definitely a blessing. I will say that.
I mean, so what has been the highlight of your career so far?
Oh man, I think. All right, so this is going to sound crazy coming off of the back of you just mentioning, working with Oprah. But I think this is not me trying to be corny or what, but this is just seeing how proud my family is. That in itself is a huge win. My grandfather, who I mentioned earlier, is a huge part of my life. He passed away a few years ago, but when he passed away, that was actually right when I first got my deal with Oprah.
Oh, wow.
Right? And so he was like, "Oh, you did it, son." Grandson. He's like, "You did it." It's just seeing that, knowing that here are people who prayed for me. My grandmother was praying for me before I was even born.
Yes,
and so
grandmother.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. And then for her to turn around and be able to turn on the TV and see her grandson, that brings tears to her eyes and brings tears to my eyes. And so that right there is a highlight, without a doubt. That's the highlight.
You know how like Jay-Z was like, your presence is charity? The work that you're doing is telling somebody else that they can actually do something that's not traditional and they can create a path for themselves. So I just wanted to say kudos and salutations to that.
Thank you. And to you as well, Luvvie. I'm telling you, you're out here doing it, inspiring so many people. So thank you for just being you.
Thank you so much. And happy Black History Month.
Happy Black History Month to you and everyone listening.
Indeed. Shout out to Paul for being on the show, and thank you for listening to AT&T 28 Days. Me and Paul had a great time, so we're not done with our conversation. So be sure to check back in with part 2. In the meantime, visit att.com/28 days for more info. Also, follow the conversation on social media using the hashtag ATT28days. It has been a pleasure being your host. I'm Luvvie of AwesomelyLuvvie.com. Peace.